Hi, again, we're gonna talk about a video from Mick the Vegan or Mike the Vegan or whatever. That's a stupid name to call yourself. Anyway, he claims that humans are starchivores, and that's a blatant lie. Nothing indicates us as being starchivores.
I'm Mike, and today we are Starchivores, how we are starch eaters despite society's general fear of carbs and starch in particular. So we're going to look at populations around the world, see what experts have to say, look through the archaeological record and some research, and see that we are actually built to eat starch. We thrive on it. And that eating whole starches in particular are absolutely nothing to be afraid of. In fact, they can have benefits for your health, like in the realm of balancing your weight. First, I want to ask, what actually makes an animal a something-ivore? You already know about herbivores and omnivores and carnivores, but what about specialties like insectivore, for example? That's just an animal that gets a lot of their food from insects, quite obvious. Other examples include how our primate ancestors were frugivores or fruit eaters and folivores or leaf eaters, gaining much of their calories from those two sources. So simply put, a starchivore is an animal that gets a large portion of their calories from starch. Easy. Okay. But I have to admit, when I think of starch, I think of mixing that clumpy potato starch into water for a recipe, or making a non-Newtonian liquid in science class, which is actually pretty cool, but at best maybe white bread. But we need to redefine our view of starch, because for our ancestors, it meant whole starches, like tubers and legumes and certain nuts. And yes, as this study shows, even whole grains back into deep Paleolithic times 100,000 years ago. So what is starch exactly? Well, starch really is just sun energy that plants turn into glucose and then tie into a chain and pack into a crystal structure to store and also make it less digestible for animals. But with the advent of cooking, which makes calories in starch 30% more of
So, starch is made to not be accessible for animals? That's interesting.
available, and also our development of starch digesting enzymes, humans became starch eating machines. And one person who's been harping on starch for a long time and also healing a lot of people through starch based diets is Dr. McDougall. You could describe him as the man who cried starch, literally.
Yeah, the problem is that nobody that was a non-biased source or a third-party scientist could ever replicate his studies. Furthermore, in his studies, you're lying here because he didn't only change the diet of those humans. He took out sugar. He took out processed foods. What else? He gave them counseling. He gave them um, he showed them how to eat. He gave them a medium in which they are very relaxed. So I don't know, there were many things changed in the perspective of their lifestyle, but to for this experiment or for his views to be um, oh, I think he limited their calories to, I'm not sure, but for his theory to be 100% accurate, he should have a control group and the starch group, and he should change only the starch intake. Like he can take it off from protein or from fat or from anything else, but he has to only change the starch intake. So you can confirm this.
Starch. It's starch that has healed thousands of my patients.
He might be a little out there sometimes, but he often says something that is undeniable.
Throughout human history, all large, successful populations of people have obtained the bulk of their calories from starch.
Historically, there's been the native Mexican cultures with their corn, the native South American cultures with their
Yeah, the Native Americans with their corn didn't cultivate only corn. They cultivated a lot more um, species. They cultivated corn. Um, I think how do you call those? I have to search for it. Yeah, they cultivated a lot more than they didn't had monocultures. They cultivated corn alongside with peas, I think, and I forgot the name. The pumpkins. Yeah, pumpkins. So they didn't cultivate only corn.
Their potatoes, the Egyptians with their wheat, and the list goes on. All of
Yeah, although it's starchy in nature, it has gluten in it. That gluten is not digestible.
the armies of history ran on starch, and even those gladiators were known as the barley
Yeah, they consume barley because that was the food that was available to them.
men. Even today, despite all of the wacky, unhealthy stuff we throw on top of it, as this study mentions, 50 to 70% of the calories in the modern diet come from starch.
Yeah, the problem is that the modern American diet, the SAD diet, is composed of mostly starch, yet people are very sick on it. So how do you explain that? Even more than 70% of the SAD diet is plant-based. So why are people so sick on it, and why are they getting sicker? Yeah, you could start explaining that if you want to get anywhere with this.
That's the definition of a starchivore. And in terms of specific healthy populations, back when the Okinawans were the healthiest population on the planet in the mid-1900s, as this study mentions, they got 70% of their calories.
Yeah, that study was made by a Western doctor or Western propagandist. That study wasn't made by a local. If you go into the local historical papers, you will see that many Japanese people they concluded that the diet of the Okinawans was had a lot of meat and ocean fish and so on, but it had a lot of fat. It was fat in nature. It was greasy. I think that's how they describe it. The Okinawan diet was greasy in nature.
Calories from starchy sweet potatoes, and over 80% of their total calories actually ended up coming from carbohydrates. And another thing about
Yeah, that's a lie. I don't know. Can I ask you, where did you get that information from? Because I don't think it's an unbiased information. I don't care. Brain, my meat and brain video. Okay, I don't care about your videos. Non-Newtonian fluid, grain consumption. Yeah, grain consumption wasn't that prevalent 100,000 years ago. The role of starchy plants in early human diet in medical and processing of starches began with the refill text. Okay, so I cannot see the whole video, so he's basing his whole comment on this abstract. See, collecting is commonly perceived to have been done among the Pleistocene followers and both much that birds, fruits, and nuts necessarily to large some has been So wait, they ate the grass seed. So do we eat grass seeds nowadays? I think they are very different from potato starch. I don't know, I'm just guessing now. So yeah, Gladiators Barley Men. Okay, Okinawan diet. Yeah, you see, if you search for the Okinawan diet and you search for Japanese or Chinese historians, they won't tell you the same things you can see here. And as I can see here, caloric restriction is a robust means of reducing age-related disease and extending lifespan in multiple species. Okay. Okay, so the non okay. So your your how do you call it? Your study here is concerned about with carb about calorie restriction, not with carb intake. So why do you lie? Okay.
Starch is it's really good at balancing out your weight. A simple example, the secret to high carb Hannah's 70-pound weight loss was a starch based diet, and as the recent broad study demonstrated, a whole was a
Yeah, as far as I can see from these images, she lost a lot of fat, I agree, but she lost a lot of muscle mass too. You can see her forearms. They became very skinny. But I don't really care. Yeah.
starch based diet, and as the recent broad study demonstrated, a whole starch vegan diet is the most effective way to lose weight without restricting calories while eating as much as you want and not adding exercise of any study to date. And they pointed to the high fiber content as the main driver of that weight loss, but it might be more than that. It might just be how our metabolism is made. As this study mentions, many overfeeding studies have shown that our body performs hardly any novolipogenesis or new fat cell creation from carbohydrate.
Yeah, that's a fucking lie because carbohydrates simply increase your insulin level. So if you increase your insulin levels, insulin is a hormone that stores fat, stores anything that you intake as fat. If you have high insulin levels from obviously consuming carbs, you will get fat deposits. So this is a lie or a manipulative statement. I don't think that that study was anywhere scientifically accurate. So carbs don't. So you lied about the Okinawan diet. Let me see about the. Okay, no common energy currency. The novel operation as the road less traveled. I don't care. Okay. So this is not even a study. This is an article. Yeah. So this is made on animals. I'm reading the study with the fat storage. So in this study, they fed fat people between 360 and 380 grams of carbohydrate per day, and they stored between 60 and 75 grams of fat stored. Yeah, but the problem is that you won't get the energy you need from 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates. So this is energy restrictive diet, to say at least. Okay, so okay, so how is this an overfeeding protocol if they provide less total carbohydrate energy stores? So in this study, they showed that if you overeat, you store fat. Isn't that a strange thing to prove? Why didn't they make us the same study with fat? Because if you make the same study with fat and the same study with a controlled diet, the same restrictive things, but a SAD diet and then a keto diet, you will see that you will lose more fat on the keto diet. And they measured only hepatic and not adipose tissue de novo lipogenesis. Oh my god, do you even read the studies that you post, because they're full of shit and they disprove what you say?
They pointed to one study in particular that massively overfed people, even with refined carbohydrates, and they still found that about 90 to 95% of the fat stored came from fat.
Oh my god, you're such a liar. Why do vegans lie so much? Why? Simply why? I don't get it. Why do you lie? Because there's no reason to lie in science if you're right. But if you're not right, then you have to lie. Oh my fucking god. How much is it for? Yeah.
Only a wee bit of that fat was from sugar. So looking to that study, it's no surprise that the authors concluded that despite an increase in the amount of carbs turned into fat when you overfeed people, they still hardly store any fat from sugar at all. Okay, fine, starch won't make us fat, but is what we've been eating in recent history really the best indicator of what we should be eating now? Let's look deep into our archaeological past, starting with the comments of an expert. Here is Dr. McDougall talking to Nathaniel Dominy, PhD, biological anthropologist and professor at Dartmouth.
You've spent your whole life studying the human diet and its relationship to teeth and bones and chemicals and genes and so on. Your conclusion is the human being is a
Starchivore. He also mentions that in order for humans to make it where we are now, we must have had access to some unique source of calories that no other animal really did.
Something extraordinary happened in human evolution. Humans evolved an ability to acquire a resource that other organisms didn't have an ability to acquire. Meat is important to an extent, but not as important as the popular media might lead you to believe. It's unpredictable. It's hard to get. So fruits are not particularly reliable either. They're seasonal. The starches, the sugars that are kept in underground storage organs of plants are much more ubiquitous in the environment and much more reliable and are there pretty much year-round.
In addition to the obvious benefits of cooking, one way we developed our ability to eat starch was Amy-1. It sounds like the next generation of robots that creepy dudes will marry, but it's actually known as the gene that makes your mouth water.
Yeah,
The AMY1 gene tells our body to put amylase, the starch digesting enzyme, into our saliva. It strikingly accomplishes 30 to 40% of starch digestion.
yeah, that's fucking wrong. As far as I know, and as far as I've read, the AMY1 enzyme digests especially the starch that you found in corn, not all types of starches. Furthermore, okay, we ate a lot of starches, then why did we develop tools that we hunted with? Why did we develop uh, tomahawks and axes and bows and arrows and rocks, sharpened rocks, which we cut meat with? Why? If we had this starch fuel every day, why did we have to develop tools to get meat? That's a simple question. Nobody found a shovel. Nobody found a digging stick, quote unquote. Nobody found that. Nobody found on caves drawings of carrots or potatoes or corn or any starch whatsoever. They found people hunting. Why is that? I'm simply asking because I know you want to bring starch to a pedestal and to prize it like a unique nutrient, but it is not. And furthermore, why did we develop the ability to run very far at a medium pace for a very long time? We can outrun almost any animal on Earth. Why would we develop such an adaptation if we ate starches? There's no point in that.
The rest happens from pancreatic amylase further down in the digestive system. As Dominique says,
to digest foods very quickly in the mouth, and you can convert the starch in the mouth directly to sugar with the amylase in your saliva.
And now for
So you want to tell me that there's no difference between starches converted in your mouth and simple sugar like like table sugar, like white sugar? Then why the fuck are you eating potato starches when you could eat just sugar?
For a final quick point as to why we do so well with starch, and that is simply that whole starches are complex carbohydrates that digest slowly because of the fiber, and they do not spike our blood.
He just said that you transform that complex quote unquote carb in your mouth into simple sugars. So how is it now a complex carbohydrate? No, complex carbohydrates are the ones that are called fibers, not the ones that we already digest instantly in our mouth.
Blood sugar, like simple sugars, they just release slowly through digestion, which helps prevent disease like diabetes. Now,
How the fuck does starches prevent diabetes? Diabetes is too much sugar in your blood. If you eat more sugar, where do you think that sugar goes? Does it goes in your, I don't know, bones? Does it goes in your, I don't know, fat? No, it will go in your blood and it will spike your blood sugar and then it will spike your insulin. Why is this so hard to understand? I don't get it. Why do you like to lie this much?
now moving on, some say that it was meat that allowed us to grow massive brains, but meat just simply wasn't a novel source of calorie capable of supercharging brains. Otherwise, lions and bears would be flying planes instead.
No, that's that's not really true because humans adapted into developing. You can look. You don't really understand evolution. Evolution means you can have hundreds of species that are dealing with a problem. That doesn't mean that they will find only one solution at adapting. It was just a coincidence we found the adaptation of having a lot of brain power to survive. Lions developed claws and teeth. I don't know. Rhinos developed body mass and a big horn. We developed our mind. That you really don't get how evolution works.
instead of us. Here's Domini again on the topic.
Because there's not a very strong match between meat consumption and gradual increases in brain size, scientists have looked to other options. And given that plant foods are such an important part of modern humans that hunt.
Yeah, the problem is that there is a correlation between us becoming a more agricultural society and brain size. When we started consuming more grains, we started having smaller brains, shorter. We became shorter in stature, and our bones became more brittle and fragile.
Other foods, the money is on plant foods and a shift in the kinds of plant foods as being the major driving factor in increasing brain size. A mix of plant foods with a large amount of starch coming from tubers and seeds.
So a mix of plant foods and starches. Well, starches aren't plant foods. I mean, you really have to be retarded. You have a PhD and you're so smart, quote unquote, but you don't consider starches plants. I mean, how retarded can that be of a statement?
Yes, in fact, starch is the perfect brain food because it's literally chains of glucose, which our brain eats up like crazy. And it's
Yeah, our brains eat glucose, but that doesn't mean it's good for us. By the way, glucose makes our brains hyperactive. And you know what happens to a light bulb when you give it too much energy? Yeah, it will shine brighter, but at some point it will burn out. This is what happens with you when you consume too much sugar. Furthermore, sugar inflames your body and turns on your fat switch. I will argue that our amylase was developed so good because we had to store fat for winter and for the periods when we didn't have enough food. By the way, if you praise this starch so much, but did you know that kids, when are born, they are in ketosis? Did you know that? I'm asking because it seems you do not know that.
It's not just Nathaniel Domini saying all these things, it's other scientists as well. From Professor Les Copeland Quote, cooking starchy food was central to the dietary change that triggered and sustained the growth of the human brain. Les Copeland co-authored this paper, which caused quite a bit of a stir in the low-carb paleo community by stating that high quantities of starch were essential for the evolution of the human phenotype.
Yeah, can you tell me how the fuck humans found so much starch? Because, look, go outside, and if you find starchy foods all year round without going to a farm or anywhere else like human exploitation, and you can sustain your calorie intake on that, I will literally convert to veganism. And compare that to how many animals you encounter. Birds, I don't know, bears, deers, and so on. Anything that is edible, anything that is not a pure carnivore. And you compare the amount of food you find as animal food, as animal source, and how much food you find in plants. I dare you, just go out right now, go out where you live, I don't know, go outside the city and tell me how much food you find in plants and how much food you find in animals, because I guarantee you won't find that much food in plants.
They got so attacked by the paleo community that they felt a need to write an official response, which actually turned out to be a pretty good summary of the paper. The authors wrote, quote, "Our article, which was subjected to rigorous academic review, proposes a testable hypothesis that over the last 800...
Yeah, it's a hypothesis. That means it's not proven. That means it's worthless.
100,000 years, our ancestors met the considerable and sustained glycemic energy requirements of our expanding brain, reproductive and other tissues through a combination of carbohydrate, particularly starch consumption, the use of fire or cooking, and the evolution of multiple copies of the salivary amylase gene."
Yeah, could it be that those multiple copies of amylase genes could have evolved for us to become more resilient in the face of starvation? Could those copies evolve because we needed to turn on the fat switch and gather more fat for us to survive winter or periods of food starvation? I'm just wondering, because I know that's a simple conclusion that I can get to. And I'm not biased in every way because I don't care what diet wins or what diet is the best. I care about the truth. So why aren't you considering both of these arguments? Because you're biased. Isn't that right, you little vegan?
In other words, we have been starchivores for the last 800,000 years.
Yeah, we have been starchivores for the last 800,000 years. Also, for the last 1.8 million years, we have been eating and hunting animals. What does that mean?
Which is 4 times as long as Homo sapiens have existed.
Oh my God, no, dude, stop. I know, but Homo sapiens isn't just like our point of evolution. We evolved way, way, we evolved much earlier than that. I don't know, I think it's like 4 million years or something like that. We didn't evolve just from 0.8 million years to now.
And looking to other studies, it appears that whenever we find these fossilized dental plaques, they contain starch grains. Even those Neanderthals that are
Yeah, maybe maybe that was what made plaque appear. Because look, I was eating a vegan diet and so on, and I had plaque, a lot of plaque forming on my teeth. When I started the keto diet, plaque simply disappeared, and anytime I eat starches, plaque appears again. Can you explain that? Did you know that our the cavities that appear on our teeth happen because bacteria in our mouth um, converts sugars into acids, and that rots away our teeth? Did you know that? Of course you didn't, because you're a vegan. You don't care about that.
supposed to only eat meat, as I mentioned in a recent video. In summary, starch has been a consistent source of calories that has fueled humanity for hundreds of
No, it hasn't. Go outside and find starches right now. Go, I challenge you. Grab your camera, go outside and find starches. Find edible human food. Come on, go. No, don't take into account farms or something. Go into the woods. Find starches. I dare you. You wouldn't. You can't.
thousands of years. It has helped develop our brain. It is the main source of calories for modern humanity. It has been a major
Yeah, it's the main source of calories for modern humanity because governments tell you to do that. Because great food industries are find it easier to work with starches than to work with any other nutrient because they're easy to manipulate.
source of calories for all civilizations throughout history that are successful. Whole starches are incredibly healthy. They help with weight loss, not just because of the fiber, but also because of the way our metabolism works, and they don't spike our blood sugar. And finally, they're delicious. I'm gonna go eat some right now. All right, that's it for today. Feel free to like the video because I know you like starch, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
So starch that's essentially sugar doesn't spike blood sugar. Okay, look, I'm gonna challenge you to a thing. You go right now, go to a diabetic and feed him or her like 500 grams of sugar. I will guarantee you, or potatoes if you want. Yeah, feed him potatoes, but do it with sugar because it's more or less the same thing. Feed him sugar. Yeah, if you do that, he will most probably go to the emergency room and possibly die. If you go right now and feed another non-dead diabetic, a type 2 diabetic, if you feed him meat like beef, or you feed him something oily like, I don't know, coconut fat. I don't think that has a special. Okay, doesn't matter. If you feed him meat or fat, he won't die. He would have zero adverse effects. I challenge you, like really do it. If you want to show that the vegan diet or the starch-based diet is truly healthy, do this. When somebody does this experiment, I will totally believe them and, I don't know, convert to veganism. I will do it. Now shut up with anything else. But until then, I'm sorry, science contradicts you a lot. Yeah. I'm I don't know. I'm fed up with these vegan liars because they lie a lot and they manipulate studies and they manipulate the information they give you from studies because most people don't look at these studies and they think that nobody looks at them and nobody listens and everybody just listens to them giving information away. Yeah, only stupid people listen to you. That's the problem. Bye.